What's up, sports parents? I'm Dan Blewett. I'm a former pro baseball player and a former sports performance academy owner. And in today's video, let's talk about why unstructured play and practice are so important for your child's development as an athlete and for their future love of the game. Okay, so this video is for parents of kids who maybe just play recreationally and for kids who are really serious about their sport. This doesn't make a difference. Unstructured play, meaning go play baseball in the backyard, go to the tennis court and hit balls by yourself, or go play with a friend without adults supervising you and running the show. Unstructured play is super important for an athlete. And here's the thing, I think parents get really worried about their kids' future, track that they're on, right? If they don't do this, and this when they're 10, then they're not going to be able to do this when they're 12, and then when they're 14, they're not going to make this elite team, and then they're never going to be good at sports. That stuff is so flatly wrong. Your kid has a chance to develop and grow and continue to improve whether or not they're on the elite 12U team or on the rec 12U team. I promise you that they do. The biggest thing that matters as you go up the ladder is how willing a player is to practice. And the way a player becomes extremely willing to practice is by loving what they do. And the way you build a love of what you do in your sport is by enjoying it and by saying, this is the thing that I want because I love to go outside and do this. I love to go to the court and do this. Unstructured play is equally beneficial to the rec player and the elite player. And this is, I think, one of the things that parents miss. They think, if my kid wants to be really great, we need to give them more lessons and more structured practices and be on the team where they practice 5 days a week and 12 months a year. And that's not really true. When they have unstructured play, again, they get to have more fun than when they have structured play. And again, the way to think about it is unstructured, fun sport play equals more love. More love equals more willingness to practice on their own. And more willingness to practice means they will become better at their sport. So if you're a parent and you want your kid to become really great one day, unstructured play is really beneficial. And if you're a parent of a rec player and they just want to have fun, unstructured play is literally the thing, having fun. So it's going to give you both things no matter which camp you're in. And so before we get into some specific reasons that unstructured play is really important, let me share a little bit about me. So if you look at my elbow, this is a defining characteristic for me as a baseball player. I had 2 Tommy John surgeries. If you're not a baseball person, Tommy John surgery is an elbow ligament reconstruction. It's a 12 plus month rehab. It's really hard. It's really long and mentally and physically difficult. How did I have the love for the game to go through this twice, to keep playing, to keep grinding through 2 surgeries that each one took me 2 years to come back from? The reason I was willing to go through so much pain and grind to keep playing was because of all the time I spent in my backyard with unstructured play as a kid. Me and my best friend Kevin, we would go back there every day and play tennis ball, baseball. He'd be imitating Ken Griffey Jr., I'd be imitating Frank Thomas, I'd be imitating Randy Johnson, he'd be imitating Greg Maddux. Like, we just loved everything baseball. That silly, just smiley love for baseball was what kept me going in high school when I started to have arm problems. And when, it becomes much more structured and becomes much more like work. And then in college, it's very hard. You got to be at 6 a.m. workouts. You're going to get yelled at in team drills if you're not really focused. Weight room is tough. Like, the travel is tough. The schedule is tough. You got to do your schoolwork. And in pro ball, man, it's cutthroat. No one waits for you. You got to perform. You got to get your work in. You got to play 140 games in 162 days. It's a lot. It's a lot. And so to prepare you to have the love to say, I sign up for this. I sign up for this really hard thing as an elite athlete. You've got to really deeply love what you're doing to grind through all that tedium and hardship of training and pain. And even if you don't want to become an elite athlete like I did, your kid still wants to enjoy what they're doing. They're out there playing not because they want to become champions necessarily. They just want to be having fun out in the sun, running around with their buddies and like moving their body. And just, physical fitness and movement is so important to the human condition and to human happiness. The other thing that unstructured play does is it gives your kids the ability to self-coach, which is so important. Your kids cannot survive just on lessons. They need to go to their lesson or they need to go to practice. And guess what? They learn something. They need to go home and practice that skill, right? And the more that they have to learn and work it out on themselves, they're working on their golf swing and coach said, oh, I should do this. So now they've got a couple weeks to work on the thing that they're supposed to do and figure out how to hit the ball straighter, how to hit it farther, whatever it is. If you have new soccer drills to go home and work on, go work on them in the backyard and like see the results yourself, right? Learning to self-coach is critically important. Even when you're on your team, you're at game day, coach can't actively be coaching you. He's got 14 other players, 12 other players, 9 other players, 6 other players to worry about, and they're working about the logistics of the game. And then each individual player has to do the thing themselves. So I think parents forget sometimes that most of an athlete's career is uncoached time. Warming up in the field itself, that's uncoached time. They have to make the play and do the thing. So they need more unstructured practice, to get to that point where they can self-coach and make adjustments. I also think unstructured play really allows kids to learn to compete, because when you're unstructured and there's not adults running the show and everyone's watching, even in just a structured practice, there's coaches watching and critiquing, right? And everyone's a little more nervous. If you're just in the backyard with two buddies, you're at the tennis courts or on the basketball court with buddies, no one really cares what happens. The results of the game only matter to you. And that's really good in encouraging that competitiveness, while also giving a safety net to fail and to try new things and to tinker and to maybe imitate that pro player that you see on TV that you love. You can make that crazy fadeaway jumper playing with your buddies that you wouldn't try in a structured practice, right? You can try that crazy bending soccer kick when you're just screwing around with your friends that you wouldn't try in practice because you're afraid your coach would yell at you or you'd look bad if you missed. There's so much stuff that unstructured play does for an athlete where they can be experimental and learn to be more fluid and learn to figure out who they are and what they're good at and what they're not, and expand their idea of what's possible. I went to the Dominican Republic as a baseball coach, and I watched some of these little Dominican kids, like 6, 7, 8 years old, making these crazy plays and imitating their favorite, players on TV. And they were doing great with it, because who cared if they throw it away, if they don't do it quite right? Who cares? They're having fun. They're just trying it. And they're doing what they want to do. They're trying things out and tinkering because they love it. And it's fun to try new stuff. So remember that unstructured play takes pressure off players. It allows them to compete for themselves and allows them to tinker and see how good they can be in an environment that is friendlier to failure. And lastly, one of the big benefits of unstructured play is just independence, letting kids work out rules, disagreements, and all these different things themselves. If they're playing backyard sports, they get to decide, hey, that was in or that was out, or that was fair, that was foul, or these are the rules. We're going to change the rules as we go. They learn to be independent. They learn to be self-reliant. They learn to deal with things themselves without an adult always intervening. They're going to figure out what their level of fairness is to each other. They're going to learn to be little adults when they're figuring some of these things out. And that's a good thing. It's good to give them some independence, to not helicopter over them all the time, and let them grow into themselves, deal with some of these conflicts themselves between their teammates. Because I would get in arguments with my buddy on, what was a strike and what was a ball when we were playing backyard baseball, and we'd have to work it out, right? It is what it is. There's no umpire, there's no coaches. We got to work it out with ourselves. So that independence is really good in helping your kids to, continue to grow into themselves, learn self-reliance, and learn to be competitors. So hopefully this video was helpful. Leave me a comment below. What do you think about unstructured play? Do you build time into it? I know today's different than when I was growing up. So all kids sort of have to be on the same page. How do you encourage unstructured play in your own athletes? All right. Thanks again for watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you here in the next video.